This is Rabbi Donnie Stelm, RDS, not to be confused with RDSW, who's Rabbi Schwechter, who refused to be on the Heichal halftime show, citing religious reasons. But tonight, for the Heichal halftime show, I want to share with you about an experience that I had, an incredible experience running for the Florida Marathon just a few weeks ago, very recently. You know, to run the Florida Marathon, or like any marathon, you have to prepare. You have to build up endurance. You have to build up tolerance. You have to be serious about it. A person has to prepare for it. And therefore, on the day of the marathon, yes, it was hot, and yes, it was humid already early in the morning. But I, together with all the other runners, set out. Of course, I had my V'horei Neinu sunglasses on, so I couldn't see anybody else who was running, just in case for those reasons. But as we set out, and I was running and running and running, just like I had trained, and it was going really, really well. And then I got to mile 12. Now, I have to tell you, I started to get tired. Now, I don't know why. I've been training for the longest time, and I really felt like I had this one. Maybe it was the heat, humidity, the fatigue. I don't know what it was. But around mile 12, there's a place where you can go off to the left for those who are only doing the half marathon, those flunker-outers. But you can go to the right is where you're going to do the full marathon. And I really had a thought in my mind, don't tell anyone, but maybe I should go to the left. I really was feeling that tired. But I told myself no. I pushed myself and I went to the right and I kept on running and running and running and pushing myself, and it was getting really hard. And at one point, I saw Rabbi Avishur with Ziv and his wife, and they were sitting there on the side, and I waved to them, and of course I asked them, "Are you good?" And they said, "We're good, we got this, we'll pass you soon." So I kept on running. I got to mile 17, my legs were cramping. I was feeling it everywhere in my body, and I didn't think I can go on any longer. But then I got to tell you, when I got to mile 20, I hit the wall. Now, any runner knows about the wall. The wall is the point where you just physiologically as well as psychologically feel like I'm done. I got nothing left in the tank, and I can't go on anymore. In many ways, the marathon is perfectly designed so that everybody hits the wall. It's the moment that every fiber of your being is screaming for you to stop. And the entire purpose of the marathon is to keep going at that point, not to quit. And by the way, I'm not reading anything. I'm telling you what really, really happened over here. This was my experience. It might sound insane, but the main reason that I kept on running at that point was to get a glimpse of the other side of that wall. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And therefore, I kept running, and really I had nothing left, and I kept running, and suddenly I was filled with that energy, with that excitement. I got to the other side of the wall, and there it was, the finish line, and I'm running, and I pulled my fist up in the air. I finally did it, and as I crossed the finish line, I heard, My alarm clock was going off. It was all a dream. Yeah, I'm not running in any marathon anytime soon, but I do want to tell you something serious, and that is that almost every morning, I try to run, mostly walk, but a little bit run. And this is true, for approximately 15 to 18 minutes. Even when it's really cold, as long as it's above 20 degrees. And one time I was telling someone that I do it, and he said, that's nothing. At your age, you got to be doing more. And I said, stop, I don't want to hear it. Because to me, it helps me a lot. And the truth is, studies show that even that amount of exercise helps. And I feel it later on in the day, and it gets me going. But that voice of, come on, what's that worth? I'm not running in a marathon. What's 15 minutes or 17 minutes or 18 minutes, mostly fast walking, a little bit of running in the morning? It's not worth anything. That voice of the Yetzer Hara, that voice of within ourselves that tells us, it's no good because I'm not at the top. That's a very important idea. Because that inner voice within ourselves, call it the Yetzer Hara, call it whatever it is, but we think it's a good voice. We think it's coming from a good place, but it's really not. And it says, come on, what's that worth? If you're not the top, if you're not playing in the Super Bowl, if you're not Tom Brady, by the way, that's a sour note for me that Tom Brady retired, because he is my favorite player, or was. And the reason he was my favorite player is because he's older than me. So I still have a chance of being the MVP in the Super Bowl. But now that he retired, I only have a few years left. But the bottom line is that often the feeling is, maybe proverbially, if I'm not the top, if I'm not an MVP in the Super Bowl, if I'm not playing, if I'm not in the NFL, then what's it worth? But would anybody say, like, I shouldn't have a good time playing football because I'm not the top, because I'm not Tom Brady, because I'm not Rabbi Stam? Everything that we do is valuable for ourselves, especially if we're pushing ourselves. And so often there's a voice, and this is for sure the Yetzer Hara. And we accomplish something, and we learn something. We learned for a few minutes extra than we wanted to, and it was hard for us. Or we accomplished something. We learned 2 blot, 3 blot, 4 blot, but we didn't make the siyum. We're not the top guy in the shir. We're not the best guy in the yeshiva. And so we think to ourselves, what's it worth? And that is a mistake. Because it's not only about finishing the marathon, it's also running the marathon. And it's not only about running the marathon, it's running for a few extra minutes in the morning. But more than in the physical world, in the spiritual world. It's not about the accomplishment. It's about pushing ourselves. It's about wanting. There's one thing that David HaMelech says, there's one thing that I ask that I really want. I want to sit in the house of Hashem all the days of my life. It's not so important that I accomplish as much as I'm pushing myself, which is the greatest of accomplishments. And that's something to remember. So, I don't know, go Eagles, go Chiefs, but go us.